It is disheartening to know that 95% of you that watch this video do not subscribe. If you do me the favor of subscribing, I will work tirelessly to continue producing awesome stories with stunning visuals for your enjoyment. Thank you.
The designer heel missed Mama Eliza's fingers by mere inches. "Move away, old woman!" Bola's voice cut through the Lagos traffic like a blade. Her G-Wagon sat idling behind her, hazard lights flashing as she towered over the hunched figure in faded clothes. "Do you know how much my shoes cost? You're dirtying the air I breathe." Mama Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her head down, clutching her tin can with trembling hands. The plastic beads around her neck, a stark contrast to the gold bangles she had worn just hours ago, rattled with each ragged breath. "God punish poverty," Bola spat, her Christian Louboutin heels clicking as she strutted back to her car. As the G-Wagon sped away, Mama Eliza slowly lifted her gaze. Through the carefully applied makeup that had aged her face, through the threadbare headscarf that hid her perfectly styled hair, her eyes burned with determination. This was only the beginning. 3 weeks earlier, Mama Eliza Obasi had made the most dangerous decision of her privileged life. Her son Daniel, Lagos's silent billionaire and founder of Oba Tech, hadn't smiled properly in 6 years. Not since his wife Adobe died, giving birth to their daughter Zara. The only woman in his life now was Bola, and she was poison. She only visits when there's an event. Mama Eliza had confided to her friend, Auntie Chioma, "That girl doesn't love Daniel, she loves the money. And worst of all, she treats Zara like an inconvenience." "You better do something," Auntie Chioma had warned, "before that woman sends your granddaughter to boarding school in Switzerland." So Mama Eliza had done the unthinkable. She had faked a trip to the UK, rented a one-room apartment in Surulere under the name Mama Nkechi, and stepped into the streets of Lagos as someone invisible, a poor widow in need. She had to find a woman who would love her son for his heart, not his billion. But someone was watching. Someone new. Wasiu had been watching the beggar woman for 3 days when he finally made his move. She was different from the others. Too clean, too articulate when she thought no one was listening. The way she held her phone when she thought she was alone. The unconscious straightening of her shoulders before she remembered to slouch. Most telling of all, the small security detail that shadowed her from a distance, thinking they were invisible. He had grown up on these streets. He knew wealth when he saw it, even in disguise. "Big madam," he said softly, appearing beside her makeshift spot under the Lekki Bridge. "Your disguise fine, oh. Just don't get too comfortable." Mama Eliza's blood turned to ice. "Excuse me?" But Wasi was already walking away, whistling a tune that made her skin crawl. That night, alone in her cramped Surulere apartment, she found the first note slipped under her door. "I know who you are. Play along or I expose everything." Her hands shook as she lit a candle. The boy couldn't be more than 19, but his eyes held the hard wisdom of someone who had survived by reading people, by finding their weaknesses and exploiting them. What did he want? Money? Leverage? Or was he working for someone else? The next morning, she returned to her spot, despite every instinct screaming at her to run. She had come too far to abandon her mission now. That's when she saw her. A young woman in a faded Ankara dress, approaching with hesitant steps and kind eyes. "Ma, are you okay?" Titi Adewale had 500 naira left until payday, but she couldn't walk past the elderly woman without stopping. "I don't have much," she said, crouching beside Mama Eliza's spot under the flickering streetlight. "But here." She pulled out 2 bananas and a crumpled 100 naira note from her purse. "It's not much, but it's something." Mama Eliza studied the young woman's face, worn but hopeful, tired but kind. This was someone who understood struggle intimately, yet chose compassion anyway. "Why would you help a stranger?" Mama Eliza asked, her voice deliberately hoarse. Titi's smile was sunshine breaking through clouds. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry and invisible. I teach children in Mushi. Not much pay, but," she shrugged, "we do what we must." They talked for 20 minutes. Titi didn't ask intrusive questions or offer hollow platitudes. She simply sat, shared her dinner, and treated Mama Nkechi like a human being worthy of dignity. What's your full name, my daughter? Titi Adewale. And you, ma? Mama Nkechi. She lied smoothly. God bless you, Titi. As Titi walked away, Mama Eliza felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. But her moment of peace shattered when Wasiu materialized from the shadows. Sweet girl, he said, tossing another note into her tin can. Too bad you're playing with fire. The note read, 1 week, then I blow everything. That night, Mama Eliza made careful notes in her journal. Titi Adewale, primary school teacher, lives in Mushi. First real sign of light in the darkness. But the boy is getting bolder. Need to move faster. Over the next week, Mama Eliza deliberately sought out opportunities to interact with Titi. The young teacher never failed to stop, never seemed inconvenienced by the encounters. Do you have family? Mama Eliza asked during one of their conversations. My mom lives in Ibadan. She's not well. My younger sister just started Polytechnic and I'm helping with her fees. Titi smiled, despite the weight of responsibility in her voice. Papa died when I was 15. We've been managing since then. Such a burden for someone so young. Not a burden, Titi corrected gently. Love makes us strong. The words hit Mama Eliza like a physical blow. When has she last heard someone speak of love as strength rather than weakness? On Thursday, she made her boldest move yet. My daughter, can you help me clean my small room? I can pay you something small. Titi hesitated only briefly. You don't need to pay me, ma. Where do you stay? Mama Eliza led her to the modest apartment, watching as Titi took in the sparse furnishings without judgment. For the next 3 hours, they cleaned together, sharing stories and simple food. You remind me of someone, Titi said suddenly, then caught herself. Sorry, I don't mean to be personal. Who? Mama Eliza's pulse quickened. A woman I met once at a charity event. She had the same presence, the way you carry yourself even when you're tired. Titi smiled apologetically. Maybe it's the way strong women recognize each other, you know. That night, another note appeared. Getting cozy with your new friend, huh? Shame if something happened to her job when people find out what kind of games rich people play. Mama Eliza's blood ran cold. He wasn't just threatening her anymore, he was threatening Titi. The charity gala was Mama Eliza's masterpiece of orchestration. She had arranged for Daniel to speak about his late wife's literacy foundation and for Titi to be invited as a volunteer coordinator. Daniel noticed Titi immediately, not because she was the most glamorous woman in the room, but because she was the most genuine. While others networked and posed, she actually listened to the children's choir, applauding with tears in her eyes. You must be Titi, Daniel said when they were introduced by the volunteer coordinator, whom Mama Eliza had quietly arranged. I've heard wonderful things about your work. And you're Mr. Obasi, Titi replied, trying not to show her nervousness. Your wife's foundation has helped so many children. I teach some of the scholarship recipients. Something in her tone, respectful but not obsequious, warm but not calculating, made Daniel pause. Tell me about them. For the next hour, they talked about education, about dreams deferred and hope renewed. Daniel found himself laughing genuinely for the first time in years as Titi shared stories of her students' resilience. From the balcony, Mama Eliza watched through borrowed opera glasses, her heart swirling. They fit together naturally. Two people who understood loss and chose to build rather than destroy. But her triumph was short-lived. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sweet couple, too bad their happiness depends on your lies. 48 hours or I tell everyone about the billionaire playing dress-up. Bala's perfectly manicured nails drummed against her Hermes bag and she paced her Ikoyi penthouse. 3 weeks she snarled into her phone. 3 weeks since he started acting strange, cancelling our dates, distracted during dinner, and now I hear he's been seen with some nobody teacher? Her private investigator's voice crackled through the speaker. I've got preliminary information. Titi Adewale, 28, teaches at a government primary school in Mushi. No significant assets, supports her family. I don't care about her sub-story, Bola shrugged. I want dirt, something I can use. What Bola didn't know was that her investigator has also noticed something else. reports of a well-spoken beggar woman around Lekki and Surulere, an unusual detail in a city full of street beggars, but one that had stuck in his mind. Meanwhile, Bola's escalating jealousy was pushing her towards increasingly desperate measures. She had already tried confronting Daniel directly, only to be told coolly that his personal life was no longer her concern. "Find me everything," she commanded. "This teacher, her family, her friends, and if you hear anything about any other woman around Daniel, anything at all, I want to know immediately." That evening, she drove to Daniel's house uninvited, finding only Zara and the nanny. "Where is your father?" she demanded. 6-year-old Zara looked up from her coloring book. "He's having dinner with Miss Titi. He said she braids hair like mommy used to." The words hit Bola like a slap. She was losing him, and losing him to a woman who reminded him of his dead wife. "You would do it just like mommy," Zara whispered as Titi's gentle fingers walked through her hair. They were in Daniel's living room, Titi having been invited for Sunday lunch. What had started as a casual meal had turned into something much more significant when Zara produced her special box of hair accessories, ones that hadn't been touched since Adobe's death. "Your mommy must have been very special," Titi said softly. "She was. Daddy still cries sometimes when he thinks I'm not looking." Zara's matter-of-fact tone broke Titi's heart. "But he's been smiling more since he met you." From the doorway, Daniel watched the scene with wonder. Titi wasn't trying to replace Adobe. She was honoring her memory while creating something new. The way she listened to Zara, the way she made space for the child's grief while still bringing joy, it was exactly what they both needed. "Miss Titi," Zara said suddenly, "would you like to see mommy's pictures?" For the next hour, they sat together looking through photo albums, Titi asking questions about Adobe, sharing stories that made them all laugh, creating connections rather than comparisons. "She would have liked you," Daniel said quietly as they watched Zara play in the garden later. "How do you know?" "Because she always said the best people were the ones who made others feel seen." He turned to look at Titi directly. "You see people, Titi. Really see them." Across the street, hidden behind tinted windows, Wasiu took pictures with a long lens camera. The happy family scene would make excellent leverage, he thought. Bola's final desperate plan was born from 3 weeks of rejection and humiliation. "If I can't have Daniel, no one will," she told her accomplice, a man who had done darker work for her before. "The child is the key. Take her, leave a note blaming the teacher, and watch their perfect little world crumble." She had spent 500,000 naira bribing the right people, the school gate guard, a cleaner who could forge handwriting, even a taxi driver who could accidentally be in the wrong place at the right time. On a rainy Friday afternoon, Zara waited by the school gate as usual, but instead of her father's familiar driver, 2 men with kind smiles and umbrellas approached. "Your daddy sent us," they said, showing her a note in handwriting that looked like Daniel's. "There's an emergency, we need to go quickly." Zara hesitated. Her father had taught her about stranger danger, but the note looked real, and they knew her name. By the time Daniel arrived with Titi to pick her up, Zara was gone. "What do you mean you gave her to strangers?" Daniel's voice shattered the security guard's composure. Titi gripped Daniel's trembling hands. "We'll find her. We have to believe that." Even as she spoke the words, her phone buzzed with a message. "Thanks to the teacher, your daughter is safe for now." Miles away in her disguise, Mama Eliza felt her world tilt. She had been so focused on her tests, on her games, that she had put her granddaughter in danger. It was time to stop playing and start fighting. The abandoned warehouse in Badagry was surrounded within 3 hours. Mama Eliza had activated resources that few knew she possessed. A private security firm with military training, surveillance technology that could track a needle in a haystack, and contacts throughout Lagos who owed her favors. Zara was found unharmed but terrified, clutching a note that read, "Courtesy of your teacher friend." As they brought her granddaughter home, Mama Eliza made another decision. The charade was over. The confrontation happened in Daniel's living room with Titi, Zara, and the kidnapping suspects present on the police guard. "I need to tell you all something," Mama Eliza began. standing in the center of the room in her full regalia, no longer the broken beggar, but the formidable matriarch she had always been. "Mom," Daniel's confusion was complete. "I thought you were in London." "I was never in London." Her voice carried the weight of authority that she'd been hiding for weeks. "I was in Surulere. I was on Lekki Bridge. I was testing hearts, and only one passed every test." She turned to face Titi, who sat frozen in shock. "You fed me when you had little. You cleaned my room without payment. You sat with me in the rain and treated me like family. You loved my son and you honored my granddaughter without trying to replace her mother. You're Mama Nkechi," Titi whispered. "I'm Mama Eliza, and I'm sorry for the deception, but not for what I discovered." The door burst open and Bola stumbled in, flanked by security guards who had arrested her at her penthouse. "This is insane," she screamed, her perfect makeup ruined by tears and desperation. "You can't do this to me. I've been with Daniel for months." "You have been using my son," Mama Eliza corrected coldly. "And when you couldn't control him, you endangered my granddaughter." The evidence was overwhelming: bank transfers, CCTV footage, witness statements. Bola's web of bribes and threats unraveled completely. But the biggest revelation was yet to come. "There's something else," Mama Eliza said, turning to face a figure who had been standing quietly in the corner. Wasiu. Wasiu stepped forward, his usual smirk replaced by something more complex: shame, defiance, and unexpected respect. "You knew I was watching," he said, "all along." Mama Eliza nodded. "I knew someone was tracking me from the second week. My security team identified you, but I wanted to understand why." "Why?" Dana demanded. "Who is this boy?" Wasiu straightened his shoulders. "My name is Wasiu Adebayo. I've been living on the streets since I was 12. My mom, she used to work for rich people. They treated her like dirt, worked her to death for nothing." His voice cracked slightly. "When I saw this woman playing poor, I thought it was another game. Rich people mocking what we go through." "So you threatened her," Titi said quietly. "I was angry. I wanted to expose the lie, show everyone how the wealthy make fun of us." He looked directly at Mama Eliza. "But then I watched you. Really watched. You weren't mocking anything. You were learning." Mama Eliza stepped closer. "And what did you learn by watching me?" "That maybe not all rich people are the same." He pulled out his phone. "I could have sold the story to blogs, made money, got famous. But when I saw what happened to the little girl," he looked at Zara, who was pressed against Titi's side. "That's when I knew the real enemy wasn't you. You helped coordinate the rescue, Mama Eliza. It wasn't a question." Wasi nodded. "I know Bola's people. Street knows street. I fed information to your security team." Daniel stared in amazement. "You risked yourself to help save my daughter? She's just a kid. And she's got good people around her now." Wasiu's eyes found Titi. "That woman there, she teaches kids like me. Kids that other people give up on." 6 months later, the Adobe Center for Hope opened its doors in Surulere. The school was Titi's dream realized. Modern facilities, qualified teachers, scholarships for children who had never imagined accessing quality education. "The first scholarship goes to Wasiu Adebayo," Daniel announced at the opening ceremony, "for courage, growth, and proving that people can change." Wasiu, now 18 and enrolled in evening classes while working as a youth counselor at the center, accepted the award with tears in his eyes. "I used to think life was about taking what you could get," he said to the assembled crowd. "Mama Eliza taught me it's about earning what you deserve." The wedding took place in a private garden in Ikoyi, simple but elegant, filled with people who mattered rather than people who impressed. Mama Eliza gave the speech of a lifetime. 6 years ago, I watched my son become a shadow of himself. Grief had taken my daughter-in-law and left me with a son who had forgotten how to live, and a granddaughter who needed to see that love doesn't end with loss. She looked at Titi. "I could have arranged a dozen introductions to suitable women. Instead, I chose to become invisible, to test hearts when they thought no one important was watching." Titi passed every test, not because she's perfect, but because she's real. She gave when she had little. She loved without knowing status. She honored the dead while embracing the living. She saw an elderly beggar woman and treated her with the same dignity she had shown a queen. But most importantly, Mama Eliza concluded, she taught my family that love doesn't replace what we've lost, it adds to what we have. As the couple exchanged vows, Wasiu stood among the guests, now clean-shaven and wearing his first proper suit. Beside him stood his mother, alive, not dead as he had claimed, but struggling with illness. The Obasi family had helped her get proper medical care and found her a job at the foundation. 1 year later, Mama Eliza returned to Lekki Bridge, not in disguise, but as herself, accompanied by the Lagos State Commissioner for Education. The spot where she had once sat as a beggar was now a small community reading corner, funded by the Obasi Foundation and maintained by Titi students. This is where it all began, she told the commissioner, watching as children from various backgrounds sat together, sharing books and stories. Titi approached now Mrs. Obasi, but still teaching 3 days a week, her belly just beginning to show with the child she and Daniel were expecting. Any regrets about the test? Titi asked, settling beside her mother-in-law. Only one, Mama Eliza admitted. I regret that it took me so long to trust that good people still exist. As the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, 4 generations of family, blood and chosen, sat together watching children play where once a desperate mother had gambled everything on the power of a stranger's kindness. Some tests, Mama Eliza reflected, were worth taking, especially when they revealed that the heart you're looking for has been looking for you too. Dear listener, sometimes the greatest disguise is simply being yourself in a world that expects you to be someone else. And sometimes the most profound test isn't what you ask of others, but what you are willing to risk for love. Thank you for watching.